Yes, we're back with the last spicy hot take for stage four for the day. Uh, Pleased to introduce Perry, CEO of Penguin Strategies, who is going to be going over attribution isn't broken, it's just misunderstood. Perry, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. Happy to be here, and shalom. I'm actually taking this from my hometown here in Israel. So here it's almost 9 o'clock at night, and probably where you guys are, it's a little bit earlier. Hopefully I'll be coherent after a couple cups of coffee. So, like you said, I'm Perry. I am the co-founder and CEO of Penguin Strategies. Um, we basically a growth agency. We help tech companies, primarily tech companies that are focused on medium to large enterprises, scale. Two sides of the business. One is very heavily invested in Rev Ops, a group of engineers and business analysts and developers helping companies build their systems. Touch on that a little bit. And then a group of strategists, designers, content people on the agency side, helping companies figure out how to grow from a digital marketing perspective. And we're going to touch on that. It's a lot to go get through in the next 10 minutes. But here we go. A couple of interesting facts about me. I've been in tech in and around startups, mostly in Israel, although I grew up in Canada. So that's kind of where the accent's from. Those of you who can't place it. I moved to Israel when I was 16, did the mandatory stint in the army. And then since I've been in tech since I've been 21 until now, and that's just almost 30 years, so you can do the math. I've done tech jobs. I started as a developer and product, but in the last 15 years, I've been mostly focused on sales and marketing. In my last job before starting Penguin, I was the head of a business development and marketing and traveled almost 30,000 kilometers in a single week, as I had speaking engagements in Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, and Thailand all in the same week.
And for those in the U.S., a little back of the napkin math, 18,500 miles.
Yeah, so it's more impressive in kilometers.
It is, but I had to
Yeah.
had to
Yeah,
convert it for myself.
no, that's true. And the other interesting fact I thought I would mention is when I got here, when I was 16, 1989, 1990, there wasn't a baseball league in Israel. So I was part of that a group of people that helped bring the first baseball league to Israel. That was pretty cool. But that's not what this talk is about, although it's probably just as interesting. A few months ago, we had a Rev Ops Meetup, a mini event, if you will, in person in Tel Aviv. And we did the regular, promote on LinkedIn. I'm sure a lot of you are here because of different promotions that different teams did. The speakers, we had the speakers promote. We did a lot of different things. And when I looked at the report before we went live, and we ended up having about 100 attendees, which is pretty cool considering we had about 100. Even though the report is a little skewed, but we had about 150 signups. But what it interested me is that half of the people there, according to attribution, came from direct traffic, which basically means I always say it's an attribution software way of saying I have no idea, although it's supposed to mean that they put in your website. Organic social, yeah, I got it. LinkedIn post and the red email, yep, we sent up some emails, but I really wanted to dig into that. And so as the beginning of the event, I started asking questions about how people had heard about the event, and I found that over 50% of the people had actually heard it through what we would call dark social means, right? They had got a WhatsApp from a friend, or in a WhatsApp group, or in a Slack channel, or in a Facebook group, or different things that really didn't come through the attribution software. And it proved something that I think we all have been seeing over the years, and is that attribution software is not giving us the whole picture. It's doesn't mean that we need to go and throw it out tomorrow, but it does mean that we need to start thinking a little bit differently about growth. How do we measure growth? How do we attain growth? And one of the things our strategy team likes to do is to try to come up with new hypotheses, new frameworks to figure and hack the system of growth, because what worked 10 years ago, write blogs, write white papers, put landing pages, and they will come, is just not taking us to the places we need to get anymore. We need to do more. You mentioned before, I kind of glossed through it. Yes, I was at Inbound a few weeks ago, and I think the main message that came out of there were a lot of important messages that came out, and features and things like that from HubSpot's perspective. But the main message that I think that really aligns with what I mentioned before is that the way we connect is broken or is changed. I think that's without going and calling it too big of it's a crisis of disconnection. And there's a number of levels to it. The first one being that we have so many systems that we've put together over the last 3, 4, 5 years. There's so many applications, so much MarTech out there, sales tech, Rev Ops, that they're helping us become more efficient, but they're really messing up our system. So those of us who deal with the IT piece of sales and marketing ops are having a hard time making sure that everything gets connected. And there's a lot of work that needs to get done. They talked a little bit about the people, how people have been disconnected because we've been sitting at home, just like I am right now, and having the lack of meeting up with people. And of course, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about is customers. How do we engage with customers, with potential customer, with prospects, in a way, in a more meaningful way, in a way that we can drive more growth and provide more value. So the usual playbook that we've been kind of running with over the last few years, is that we talk about differentiation of our messaging, doing demand gen or branding. There's two types. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. You've got demand gen and lead gen, or sometimes get confused. Demand gen, and when I'm talking about demand gen, it's about creating the demand for your product or services by putting out messaging that will and sharing insights in and around your industry or your target or your ICP and the sort. So that's been that's the playbook. That's part of the playbook. The second is you want to put together the strategy. I'll talk about the error in a minute, and invest in remarkable content. None of these things are anything grand or new. What I want to talk about today is the missing piece, the thing that we need to do differently from today. I mean, if you could start yesterday, I would recommend that. But if you haven't started yesterday, we should start today, or and get started on it. And that is what I'm going to call audience insight research. And when I say I call it, it's my strategy team has called it that. And something we've been working on over the last year or so, and been seeing some really incredible results. Okay, hopefully there are a lot of people who like diagrams, because here it comes. This is the process that we follow with our customers, and we've been actually we've tested it on ourselves, and we've been working with it on customers over the last 12 to 18 months, and it really is. There's two parts to it. The first part is doing the actual research into what we're going to write content about, and then writing content. And I'm sure all of you are going to say we do that. There's nothing new that I'm mentioning here. But what I'm saying is most companies that they do when they try to figure out what their customers' problems are, they're not starting at the very beginning. Let me talk what I mean. What do I mean by that? You'll create an ICP, an ISP. You know who your ICP is. let's say your HubSpot and your ICP is the head of Rev Ops. You want to, when they wanted to decide to move the needle with their CRM, it wasn't enough to target what they called Marketing Mary, head of marketing, VP marketing. You needed to start targeting people who were dealing with sales ops, with revenue operations, and in order to write content and to understand those people in depth, you really couldn't just start over here. And what happens a lot of times is when you start right away writing content, you create the content, you see what works, and then you correct it. You're missing a lot of times the whole categories. What I'm recommending, what we're putting forward and we're doing differently, it seems slight, but it's actually pretty dramatic, is looking, especially in times when when times like we've been seeing over the last 6 months, that the economy is starting to get a little bit smaller. We need to start looking at new areas or new markets, new categories. And so what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to new ICPs, make hypothesis, discover these people, and interview them in as non-sales a way as possible. And this can be done by, I'll talk a little bit about how this can be done. And once you've interviewed them and tried to really understand their worldview and understand what are the real problems they're having in their jobs and how it can relate to your industry, to your products. After you've done that, because you diverge, you've got a lot of big list of issues, you start defining what are the areas that you're going to focus on, and then you come up with a list of content. You've got the list of content, you start creating it and start seeing what works, and that's where the attribution software comes back into play. How much traffic are we getting to the pieces? What types? Who's coming and visiting these pieces of content? Is it the right types of people? And once you've been testing it and executing on that, you can deliver more and more focus. And if you've done this correctly, and it takes a little bit longer, it requires a little bit more patience, but you will slowly over a number of months create new products, new categories or new areas that you can market into, and then you can start doing lead generation, which is actually collecting on that demand that you've created. So the way that I mentioned before, here we're doing a lot of qualitative research, figuring out what needs to do, creating the content, doing the quantitative, seeing what works, delivering the message, and then collecting and then collecting big. So there's some big investment up front, but there's a huge upside on the tail end of that. I'm telling you that from experience. We've run this with numerous companies over the last 12 to 18 months. I'm not talking about the one or two. I'm talking about numerous, which would be like 10 or 15 companies that have seen growth when a lot of companies in their competition have seen real stagnation, especially over the last 6 to 8 months. So I apologize, I had to run through this really quickly. It's only giving you a quick bite size because I want to make sure that I'm giving the overview, and I'm happy to take questions after this. Oh, quickly, a few tips on how to do this in a non-sales way. One is think scale when you do this type of research and content. Like by starting a podcast, it's an easy way to not only interview people, get people interested to talk to you, and then of course it becomes a piece of content. You can of course record it, you can videotape it, showing my age, and write blogs about it. You can do an ongoing webinar series. You can do interview blogs, create peer books, or just reach out, ask for help. Someone just did that to me today on LinkedIn. They just sent an email and said a note saying, "Hey, I'm building a new product, a new feature. I love your feedback." All these are tried and tested. That's why I'm recommending them. And I just, as a key takeaway, in my opinion, this is where it's going. So in the name of, as I mentioned, I grew up in Canada, and one of my heroes was, of course, Wayne Gretzky, and his quote, or his claim to fame, if any of you remember, is I skate to where the puck is and not to where it has been. So if you're doing marketing the way you did it 2-3 years ago, it's time to up the game.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Perry, I
Right on the
appreciate it. We are running a little late and right on time, so I know that it's at 2. There's kind of a wrap up thing on the main stage.
Sure.
I highly recommend connecting with Perry, and super valuable insights that resonate with me. I think that there's a lot of things that have been done, but sometimes you got to sift through the noise and do your due diligence up front to really find a strategy that is going to yield results in the back end and not just recreating what everyone else has already done. So, Perry, we appreciate it, and we will see everyone on the main stage.
Thank you. See you later, Adam. Bye-bye.